mixing buckets. Little patch and paint, 30-minute dry time. On the sanding pads, I got a whole bunch of 60 grit. We're gonna get some 220. We need to find a dry one that's straight. I think we have a winner. Really straight this way, and barely any knots. Alright, have a good weekend. Alright, this is the piece of wood we're gonna turn into an epoxy bar top. Let's see, here's the cut sheet for it. Total length 72.5, and I was over there measuring it all out the other day. So this is more of the traditional way to do it. Glue 2 pieces of MDF together because it's so flat and perfect. It doesn't need any kind of body work. You just epoxy right on top of this, or put some paint on it first and then epoxy on it. I did measure about 3 times, so let's hope I'm right. I'm just gonna use the multi-tool. Epoxy box of colors and mixers. You can get all these like at Hobby Lobby or just order a kit. I think all these are Hobby Lobby. Find the opaque black pigment. You need one of these. 60 grit. Alright, so we're going to be using a Makita router. Now normally it would come with I think a 4-inch base. This is a base you could buy for maybe 20 bucks. It gives you a little bit more stability. Sometimes with the 4-inch base, it'll rock a little bit. Other countertops in the house, in my mom's house, I was using these roundovers. But I was leaving a little bit of ledge. See what bit I have on there right now. It's a 45 degree. It's kind of a little bit more modern style. It looks a little better, easier to do. Make sure your bearing's good. Do a quick test cut. You can see it's a really good bevel. It's probably about ½ an inch thick. Before we go any further, I think it's safe to go test fit this. Alright, here goes the test fit. I'm gonna be brushing out some of these knots and little damage areas. All gotta be perfect. Epoxy can cover a lot of this. Just trying to get the big holes out. We're gonna switch to 220 grit. Try to feather these edges down a little bit because epoxy doesn't like these sharp edges. This will poke through the epoxy later. And a quick wipe down. Alright, so there's 2 ways to do this. You can either brush it on or roll it on, or spray it. We're gonna spray it. The flat paint dries a little bit quicker, a little bit easier to spray. Alright, so the plan is mix up a whole tub of this. It's gonna end up being 64 ounces, which is half of a gallon. And this is a 1 gallon kit, so this is the part where you have all the fun. Sit there, mix up colors, pour them in there, move them around, and just see what happens. So even if you mess up, you just pour another coat right over it. Alright, let's do it. We're gonna try our best to do this real time. So the hardener is a lot thinner than the epoxy. So we're gonna start with the hardener. And we're gonna pour it. Always use a lot more than you think you're gonna need. 3/4. I'm gonna do 3/4 on the epoxy. So that's gonna be 1.5. And we're just gonna mix it kind of at a low speed. Put it on reverse. Now we're on the clock. See, this epoxy is already at 83 degrees. And pour all this in there. We're doing this because on the edge of this cup it's going to have a lot of unmixed areas. You really want to use 2 cups for this part. Don't even scrape the edges. Alright, we're going to pour half this mix or whatever this whole cup is, into this cup. It's gonna be a mess. I'm gonna put some of this black pigment in. Way too slow for me. Cut a hole in it. Dump it in. You want to keep this one moving. If you let this one sit still, it's gonna harden up. You want to keep this one moving. I'm gonna go mix the black in. Right there. Keep this mixed up. And if you look on my thermostat, you see it says 87 degrees. Way hotter than you should be pouring this at. 75's optimal. Spread. You can already feel how hot this is already. The whole thing is getting it coated with epoxy. Got a whole thing in here where you just scoop it, start coating. See, that's already at 116, so it's heating up. And on the piece, we're still at 93. So you gotta keep it moving, keep it thin. Yeah, this cup is really hot. I'm gonna pour it in there. We're gonna put some silver. And a lot of macro pearl. Gonna stir this up. It's gonna be silver and macro pearl. Put a glitter in there. Actually a lot. Start in the middle. Kind of like thin it out, thin it out, thin it out. Alright, we're gonna go for our second pour this morning. Yeah, so the first one got away from us. We poured it a little bit too late in the evening. But today, we're doing 6:30 a.m. Let it dry for about 2 days and then re-sanded it down and repainted it. Round 2. Gonna hurry up and get us back to where we were. Pour the black on here, pour the silver glitter on here, and I should be able to catch up with you back then. Looking pretty good. We're gonna try to add a little bit of this gold. But when I hit it with the torch, it's probably gonna move a lot, so probably barely gotta hit it with the torch. So it's math gas, it's a lot hotter than propane, so just go quick, just like that. Probably turn it up a little bit. Just go quick. We'll just go down the side real quick. So the whole thing with it, when you have it thin like this, it doesn't dry so fast, but you can see how wet it is still. And down here, it's already solid. So when you're working with epoxy, just don't leave it in a thick, you know, if you left it in here, this container, all of this would be hard already. 170 degrees in there. The surface of this is only 80. Even with the heat gun. All right, so this is a little test piece, just to test effects. Try the alcohol. Yeah, the alcohol looks pretty good. So a lot of people like to take a stick and kind of knock it off. I like to just use my hand and kind of coat the bottom edge. Some of this old right here, just rub it along the bottom. No waterproof, about 1 to 2 inches of the edge, just in case something drips over. If you barely see bubbles popping, you're already there. Like, I barely see anything popping. You know, if you weren't happy with the one coat, it had some bumps in it or some waves, you could easily just barely scuff it down, put just a clear coat on top, and it'll definitely smooth it out, make it a little bit more durable also. So we did have a problem the first time we poured this. You know, I thought it was the temperature in the garage. What it ended up being is, I think I had something sitting in a cup and I poured it on top when all this was still good to go, and that sludge messed it up. The piece was still fine, but I had poured some already hardening epoxy on it. I'm already on my second cup of coffee. Alright, so all your leftovers, this is from the first pour, just store that. Try to keep it in like room temperature. Not too hot, not too cold. You can see it leveled out real nice. I did the last wipe already. Looks really good. You already know this camera does not even show what it really looks like. Hope this video helped you gain a little bit more confidence on messing with epoxy. It's really not that bad. You know, you can always fix a mistake. Still have enough to do something else. Start looking around the house. See y'all next time.